In the midst of World War II, the United States found itself hosting an unexpected population, German prisoners of war. Among these camps was Camp Alton, located in the state of Illinois. Established in 1943, Camp Alton was designed to house approximately 3,000 German POWs. The camp was laid out in a grid featuring rows of long barracks, a mess hall, recreational facilities, and administrative buildings. Guard units, primarily composed of U.S. Army personnel from the Military Police Corps, maintained security and order within the camp. Prisoners at Camp Alton were not idle. Under the guidelines set by the War Department and detailed in circulars distributed to all POW camps, the prisoners were engaged in labor that supported the American war effort. This labor included work in agriculture, canneries, and lumber processing, as well as assignments in factories and on railroads. The labor was compensated according to the Geneva Convention, albeit indirectly. Prisoners earned coupons instead of cash, which could be used to purchase goods at the camp canteen. On a crisp morning in the spring of 1944, a group of German POWs departed Camp Alton under guard, bound for a nearby dockyard. Their task was to assist in the loading and unloading of materials vital to the war effort. As they arrived at the dockyard, the POWs were greeted by the typical cacophony of industrial labor, the clatter of machinery, the shouts of foremen, and the rumble of ships arriving and departing. However, the scene soon shifted into something unfamiliar. The dockyard workers abruptly ceased their labor, machinery ground to a halt, and the workers began to gather at the gates in protest. The German prisoners, accustomed to the strict wartime discipline of their homeland, were taken aback. They watched with growing curiosity as the workers unfurled banners and placards, forming a picket line. Expecting a swift and forceful response, the POWs anticipated the arrival of government soldiers to disperse the strikers and restore order. In Germany, such an act of defiance during wartime would have been met with severe punishment, potentially even imprisonment or execution. However, the response they witnessed was markedly different. Local police arrived not to break the strike, but to ensure the safety of the protesters, blocking cars and redirecting traffic to prevent any potential incidents. The local newspapers quickly seized upon the event, sending reporters to interview both the striking workers and the dockyard management. Articles published in the following days highlighted the core issues: demands for fair wages and improved safety conditions. A dock foreman explained to reporters that the right to strike and negotiate terms, even during wartime, was a fundamental aspect of American labor relations. This concept was alien to the German POWs, whose understanding of loyalty and wartime duty was rooted in a vastly different ideological framework. The logistical system supporting the POWs in America was well documented in the records of the U.S. Army Provost Marshal General. These records detailed the integration of POW labor into the civilian economy, ensuring compliance with both U.S. law and international agreements. The prisoners were provided with adequate food and shelter, inspected regularly by the Red Cross to ensure humane treatment. Rationing policies, applied universally across the United States, were extended to the POWs, who received meals comparable to those of American soldiers. Civilian attitudes towards the German POWs varied widely. While some Americans viewed them with suspicion or hostility, fearing potential escape or sabotage, others saw them as a necessary part of the wartime labor force. Recorded incidents of conflict were relatively rare, as the military and local law enforcement worked to maintain a delicate balance between security and humane treatment. Within the camp, discipline was maintained through a combination of routine inspections, educational programs, and recreational activities. Medical care was accessible, with camp infirmaries staffed by military doctors. POWs were permitted to receive mail from home, subject to censorship, fostering a connection to their distant families. The YMCA played a significant role in providing educational materials and organizing activities that aimed to occupy the prisoners' time constructively. As the war drew to a close, the focus shifted to repatriation and re-education. Directives from the War Department outlined the procedures for returning prisoners to their homeland, emphasizing the importance of dismantling the ideological beliefs that had fueled the conflict. The American approach to re-education was practical and systematic, relying on exposure to democratic ideals rather than coercion. The experience of witnessing an American Union strike left an indelible mark on the German POWs. It was an encounter with a different kind of struggle, one not fought with rifles or tanks, but with placards and negotiations. Through the systems and environments they navigated, the prisoners gained a new perspective on the complexities of loyalty, labor, and liberty in a nation at war. In the wake of the strike, the German POWs at Camp Alton found themselves reflecting deeply on the extraordinary events they had witnessed at the bustling dockyard. The experience was a profound departure from their expectations, shaped by their upbringing in a Germany where dissent was met with harsh punishment and immediate retribution. The German prisoners, accustomed to a regime that demanded absolute obedience, were taken aback by the American response to the strike. A calculated, peaceful management by local police and open media coverage that offered a stark contrast to their previous experiences. This new paradigm demanded careful consideration and reflection. The POWs continued their labor assignments at the dockyard, where operations resumed under the newly negotiated terms by the Union. As they toiled alongside American laborers, they noticed subtle yet significant changes in the atmosphere. There was a renewed sense of purpose and solidarity among the workers, a testament to the effectiveness of their collective action. For the POWs, this was a rare opportunity to witness democracy in action, a concept that had been abstract and distant in their previous lives back in Germany. As they worked, conversations between POWs and American workers began to unfold, revealing further insights into the cultural differences in labor relations. Despite the language barriers, these discussions were enlightening. The dock foreman, a seasoned man named Thomas Harris, occasionally paused his supervision to explain the principles behind union negotiations. With a patient demeanor, he spoke of the necessity of fair wages and safe working conditions, emphasizing that these were not mere privileges, but fundamental rights that workers had fought to secure over decades of struggle and perseverance. The POWs listened intently, their expressions a mix of curiosity and disbelief. In their homeland, the war effort overshadowed individual rights and freedoms, and the idea that workers could challenge authority without fear of severe retribution was foreign to them. Yet here, in this American dockyard, it was a daily reality, an integral part of the societal fabric. As weeks turned into months, the POWs observed that the American workers maintained a respectful demeanor towards them, despite the ongoing conflict between their nations. This treatment was mirrored in the broader community surrounding Camp Alton, where civilians often expressed a pragmatic view of the POWs' presence. Many residents saw them not as enemies, but as individuals caught in the tides of war, deserving of humane treatment and a chance for redemption. The camp itself was a microcosm of this humane approach. It operated under the principles outlined by the Geneva Convention, ensuring that the POWs received adequate food, medical care, and opportunities for education. Language classes and vocational training were offered, aimed at preparing the POWs for life after the war. These initiatives were part of a broader effort to promote understanding and prevent future conflicts, fostering an environment where mutual respect and empathy could flourish. Periodically, groups of POWs were transported to nearby towns for labor assignments, further exposing them to the workings of American society. Here, they encountered a nation mobilized for war, yet characterized by a vibrant civilian life that thrived on principles of freedom and opportunity. The contrast to their experiences in wartime Germany was stark. In Germany, the omnipresent military machine left little room for individual expression or dissent. However, in America, they witnessed communities engaged in lively debates, people freely expressing their opinions, and a society that valued the contributions of every individual. The local newspapers continued to cover labor relations and other societal issues, providing the POWs with a window into the democratic process. Articles on the strike were followed by letters to the editor, where citizens expressed diverse opinions on the matter. Some praised the union for advocating for workers' rights, while others criticized the disruption to the war effort. This public discourse was a revelation to the POWs, illustrating a society where multiple viewpoints could coexist and be debated openly without fear of reprisal. As the war neared its end, discussions about repatriation and re-education became more prevalent within the camp. The American authorities were keenly aware of the need to dismantle the ideological beliefs that had fueled the conflict. To this end, they introduced programs aimed at fostering critical thinking and understanding among the POWs. These initiatives were designed not as indoctrination, but as opportunities for the POWs to engage with new ideas and perspectives, encouraging them to question and reflect on their beliefs and assumptions. The POWs' experiences at Camp Alton and the surrounding communities left an indelible mark on many. For some, these experiences would serve as catalysts for personal transformation, influencing their views long after they returned to Germany. The lessons learned at the dockyard and beyond would become part of a broader narrative of reconciliation and rebuilding in the post-war world. As the final months of the war unfolded, the POWs continued their daily routines at Camp Alton. They worked, learned, and observed, participating in a unique chapter of history that bridged two nations at war. The day they witnessed the Union strike had been a moment of revelation, challenging their preconceived notions and offering new insights into the complexities of democracy and labor relations. In the end, the legacy of their time in America would be defined not by the conflict that brought them there, but by the unexpected lessons in humanity, justice, and the enduring power of collective action. As the world moved towards peace, the experiences of the German POWs at Camp Alton would contribute to a broader understanding of the potential for change and healing, even amidst the devastation of war. The profound impact of these experiences was not lost on the POWs. Many began to question the ideologies they had been taught, contemplating the possibility of a world where dialogue and compromise could replace conflict and authoritarianism. The notion that different perspectives could coexist and enrich a society was a powerful revelation, one that would resonate with them as they contemplated their future roles in a post-war Germany. As they prepared for repatriation, the POWs carried with them a newfound appreciation for the democratic ideals they had witnessed. They left Camp Alton with a deeper understanding of the complexities of human interaction, the importance of empathy and respect, and the potential for collective action to bring about meaningful change. These lessons would serve as a foundation for their reintegration into civilian life, influencing their contributions to the rebuilding of their nation. Ultimately, the experiences of the German POWs at Camp Alton exemplified the transformative power of exposure to different cultures and ideas. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity for growth and understanding even in the most challenging of circumstances. As the world emerged from the shadows of war, the lessons learned at Camp Alton would continue to inspire efforts towards reconciliation and peace, serving as a reminder of the shared humanity that unites us all. In the days following the Union strike, the atmosphere at Camp Alton was charged with a mixture of curiosity and introspection. The German POWs, having observed the events at the dockyard, found themselves discussing the strike during their daily routines in the camp. The spectacle of American workers openly challenging authority without fear of immediate reprisal was a topic of endless fascination and perplexity. The POWs were accustomed to a system where dissent was forcefully suppressed, and the sight of workers united in their demands, voicing their grievances in a public forum, was something entirely foreign to them. This vivid demonstration of democracy in action prompted numerous discussions among the prisoners as they went about their daily activities. The POWs' daily activities, which included educational programs and work assignments, were interspersed with conversations that dissected the nuances of what they had witnessed. The camp's educational curriculum, designed under the Geneva Convention to promote critical thinking and prepare the prisoners for reintegration into society post-war, now had a new dimension to explore. Lessons on democratic principles and labor rights became particularly poignant, offering the POWs a framework to contextualize the strike. One could imagine a typical day at Camp Alton beginning with roll call, followed by various work assignments that kept the prisoners busy. Yet, even during these tasks, snippets of conversation could be overheard with terms like union, negotiation, and rights weaving their way through discussions. The educational sessions that followed, once seen by some as obligatory and mundane, now buzzed with newfound interest and enthusiasm. Lectures on American history and government, previously regarded by some prisoners as mere academic requirements, now took on a newfound relevance. The POWs attended these sessions with increased attentiveness, eager to understand the societal structures that allowed for such public displays of dissent. Instructors at the camp, aware of the strike and its impact on the prisoners, tailored their lessons to address the questions and curiosities that had arisen. These educational sessions often turned into interactive forums where prisoners eagerly posed questions and engaged in debates. The instructors, recognizing the unique opportunity to foster critical thinking, encouraged this dialogue, often guiding the conversation towards broader themes of governance and individual rights. The prisoners were particularly intrigued by the idea of collective bargaining and the legal protections afforded to workers in America, concepts that were starkly different from what they had known in Germany. The camp library, stocked with a variety of books and periodicals, became a hub of activity. Some POWs sought out newspapers and journals detailing labor movements and political systems. Others delved into historical accounts of American independence and the development of its democratic institutions. Through these texts, the prisoners began to piece together a broader understanding of the cultural and political factors that shaped American society. The library, once a quiet retreat for solitary reading, transformed into a bustling center of learning and debate. Prisoners gathered around tables, sharing insights gleaned from various texts. Some engaged in animated discussions about the philosophical underpinnings of democracy, while others pored over maps and timelines, tracing the evolution of labor rights in America. It was as if the library had become a microcosm of intellectual exploration, fueled by the POW's desire to understand the world beyond the barbed wire. Outside the confines of educational settings, the POWs engaged in discussions that were marked by a cautious exploration of ideas. Conversations in the barracks, during mealtimes, and in the communal areas of the camp often revolved around comparisons between the German and American systems of governance. The stark differences in labor relations and the role of the state in managing civil unrest were recurring themes. These discussions were often tinged with a sense of wonder and incredulity. For many POWs, the idea that a government would allow such open displays of dissent was astonishing. They debated the implications of such freedom, considering whether it was a sign of strength or weakness. Some expressed admiration for the workers' courage, while others speculated on the potential risks of allowing such challenges to authority. Camp Alton's leadership, aware of the potential for ideological shifts among the prisoners, encouraged these discussions as part of the re-education process. The camp commandant, along with his staff, viewed the POWs' exposure to American societal norms as an opportunity to facilitate a broader transformation in their worldviews. This approach was in line with the broader Allied strategy to promote democratic values and dismantle the ideologies that had fueled the war. The commandant, a pragmatic and forward-thinking individual, saw the strike as a teachable moment. He encouraged his staff to incorporate discussions of the strike into their educational programs, believing that first-hand exposure to democratic principles could have a lasting impact on the prisoners. He often joined the discussions himself, providing insights and encouraging the POWs to think critically about the systems they had been a part of. Meanwhile, outside the camp, the dockyard strike continued to unfold in the public eye. Local newspapers provided regular updates on the negotiations between the union and the dockyard management. Reports detailed the workers' demands, the management's responses, and the involvement of mediators attempting to broker a resolution. The coverage highlighted the complexity of labor relations during wartime, emphasizing the balance between supporting the war effort and ensuring fair treatment for workers. The strike also attracted attention from national media outlets, which covered the event as part of a broader narrative exploring labor dynamics in wartime America. These articles provided context for readers, including the POWs, about the historical significance of labor movements and the evolving role of unions in advocating for workers' rights. The POWs followed these developments with keen interest, eagerly awaiting each new installment in the ongoing saga. They analyzed every detail, comparing the unfolding events with the lessons they were learning in their educational sessions. The newspapers became valuable resources, offering real-time examples of the principles they were studying. As the strike negotiations progressed, the POWs observed with keen interest how the situation was resolved without violence or authoritarian intervention. The eventual agreement, which included concessions on wages and safety measures, was seen as a testament to the efficacy of peaceful negotiation and compromise. This outcome, reported in newspapers and discussed in camp lectures, reinforced the notion of collective bargaining as a legitimate and effective means of conflict resolution. The resolution of the strike was met with a mix of relief and admiration among the POWs. They marveled at the ability of both sides to reach an agreement without resorting to force. This peaceful conclusion stood in stark contrast to the confrontational methods they were familiar with and served as a powerful example of the potential for dialogue and compromise in resolving conflicts. The POW's exposure to the strike and its resolution contributed to an evolving understanding of American democracy and labor relations. The experience challenged their preconceived notions and provided a tangible example of the practical application of democratic principles. In the broader context of the war, the events at the dockyard were a minor episode, yet for the German POWs at Camp Alton, they represented a microcosm of the ideological shift that was taking place. The strike served as a catalyst for reflection and learning, prompting the prisoners to reconsider their own beliefs and assumptions. As spring gave way to summer, the daily life at Camp Alton continued, punctuated by work assignments, educational programs, and recreational activities. The memory of the strike lingered, influencing the discussions and interactions among the POWs. The camp's re-education efforts, supported by the experiences and insights gained from the strike, aimed to prepare the prisoners for their eventual return to Germany, equipped with a broader perspective on governance, labor, and individual rights. The lessons learned during this period had a lasting impact on the POWs. Many began to view the world through a different lens, recognizing the value of dialogue, negotiation, and democratic principles. They carried these insights with them, pondering how they might apply them in their future lives. In the years following the war, many of the POWs carried these lessons with them as they reintegrated into German society. The ideological dismantling that began at Camp Alton, facilitated by the unexpected encounter with American labor dynamics, played a role in shaping their contributions to post-war Germany. Through exposure to diverse cultures and ideas, the POWs experienced a transformation that underscored the potential for understanding and reconciliation in the aftermath of conflict. As they returned to their homeland, these former prisoners found themselves part of a rebuilding effort that required new ways of thinking. The insights gained at Camp Alton, particularly those related to democratic principles and labor rights, proved invaluable in shaping their roles as contributors to a new Germany. Their experiences underscored the power of education, dialogue, and cultural exchange in fostering a more peaceful and understanding world. The German POWs at Camp Alton had spent months acclimating to their routine duties at the dockyard, a place that thrummed with the relentless rhythm of wartime production. Day after day, they worked under the watchful eyes of their captors, their labor contributing to the war effort of a country they had once seen as the enemy. Over time, they had settled into a routine, the repetitive nature of their tasks offering a semblance of order in a world upturned by conflict. However, the day of the Union strike marked a significant deviation from their expectations and injected a new sense of curiosity and wonder into their otherwise regimented lives. The strike was unlike anything many of the POWs had experienced before. As they stood by, observing the dock workers lay down their tools and gather in solidarity, the scene was one of orderly, nonviolent protest. It was a far cry from the punitive measures associated with dissent in their home country, where any challenge to authority was often met with swift and severe retribution. The POWs were captivated by the calm determination of the workers and the surprising tolerance of the authorities overseeing the strike. This moment of peaceful protest lingered in their minds, sparking a desire for further understanding. In the days that followed, the POWs resumed their tasks, but the memory of the strike persisted. It became a frequent topic of conversation, a puzzle that demanded unraveling. During their sparse leisure time, informal discussions blossomed among the prisoners. They gathered in small groups, exchanging thoughts and insights, each trying to piece together the intricacies of what they had witnessed. The strike had opened a window into a world governed by principles that were foreign to them, principles that seemed to empower individuals in ways they had never imagined. Recognizing the educational potential of this moment, the camp's administration seized the opportunity to delve deeper into the principles of democracy and labor rights. The educational programs, initially designed to teach basic English and history, began to incorporate elements of American civic structures. The recent strike became a case study, a tangible example of democracy in action. Lectures and discussions were enriched with detailed descriptions of the National Labor Relations Act, the backbone of American labor laws. Prisoners learned about the rights guaranteed to workers, including the right to organize and bargain collectively, rights that were part of a broader framework meant to balance power between workers and employers. For many of the German soldiers, this was their first exposure to a system that valued dialogue as a primary tool of negotiation. The concept that such rights were upheld even during wartime was particularly foreign to them, challenging their preconceived notions about governance and authority. They were invited to examine the mechanics of a society where dissent was not only allowed, but protected, a stark contrast to the strict hierarchies they had known in Germany. In the evenings, small groups of POWs gathered in their barracks, animatedly discussing what they had learned. The American guards, tasked with maintaining order, observed these discussions with mild curiosity. They had been instructed to allow the educational programs to proceed unhindered, recognizing the potential benefits of exposing the POWs to democratic ideals. After all, these lessons could plant seeds of change, fostering a new understanding that might one day contribute to a more peaceful world. Meanwhile, the strike itself continued to make headlines in the local newspapers. Reports provided updates on the negotiations between the dockyard owners and the union representatives, highlighting the complexities of wartime economics. The articles delved into the pressures faced by both workers who sought adequate compensation for their labor and employers who needed to maintain production levels vital to the war effort. The nuanced coverage offered the POWs additional insights into the workings of a society where civic engagement played a crucial role. As weeks passed, the union and management reached a tentative agreement. The resolution addressed key concerns over safety regulations and included modest wage increases. Among the POWs, reactions were mixed. Some viewed the outcome as a testament to the possibility of peaceful negotiation, a hopeful sign that conflicts could be resolved without resorting to violence. Others, however, remained skeptical, conditioned by their experiences to expect that any dissent would be met with harsh reprisals. The idea that a society could function on principles of mutual respect and compromise was still a novel concept, one that would take time to fully comprehend. The camp's administration, aware of the potential impact of these events on the POWs' perspectives, encouraged further educational initiatives. These programs began to focus on post-war reconstruction and the role of democratic governance. Classes were framed within the context of a future where Germany, too, might embrace such principles. The educational activities fostered a sense of responsibility among the POWs for their eventual return home, encouraging them to envision a future where they could contribute to the rebuilding of their nation. Outside the confines of the camp, life in Alton and the surrounding areas continued to reflect the tensions and adaptations of a country at war. Rationing impacted everyday life, altering the way people shopped and dined. The presence of POWs in the community was a constant reminder of the global conflict, yet the strike had illuminated a different facet of American life. It underscored the strength of civic engagement and the resilience of democratic institutions, offering a glimpse into a society that valued the voices of its citizens. For the POWs, the strike became a catalyst for introspection, challenging the narratives they had been raised with. It was not merely the act of striking that left an impression, but the societal acceptance of dissent as a legitimate and protected form of negotiation. This newfound understanding of democracy, labor rights, and individual agency would accompany the POWs back to Germany, shaping their roles in the post-war landscape. As the war drew to a close, preparations for the POWs' repatriation accelerated. The educational programs at Camp Alton had equipped them with new perspectives, ones that emphasized the value of dialogue and compromise. These lessons, absorbed amidst the backdrop of an unexpected union strike, held the potential to influence the rebuilding of their homeland. In a post-war Germany, democratic ideals could take root, nurtured by the experiences and insights gained during their time at Camp Alton. The lasting impact of the strike on the POWs was profound, yet largely internalized. It served as a silent testament to the transformative power of exposure to differing ideologies and the enduring strength of democratic principles in shaping a more just and equitable society. Through the lens of their experiences, the POWs came to appreciate the potential for change, understanding that a society built on mutual respect and open dialogue could pave the way for a brighter future. As the war came to an end, The process of repatriating the German POWs from Camp Alton began in earnest. The War Department implemented a systematic approach to ensure the prisoners returned to Germany, focusing on logistical coordination and adherence to international agreements. The camp's administration, tasked with overseeing this transition, worked diligently to prepare the POWs for their departure. During this period, the educational programs at Camp Alton intensified with a renewed emphasis on re-education and the introduction of democratic principles. The POWs engaged in discussions and lessons that explored governance, civic responsibility, and the importance of individual rights within a society. These initiatives were designed to dismantle the ideologies that had fueled the war, encouraging the prisoners to reflect on their experiences and consider alternative perspectives. The memories of the dockyard strike remained vivid among the POWs, serving as a poignant example of peaceful negotiation and collective bargaining. As they prepared to leave America, many reflected on the lessons learned from witnessing a society that valued dialogue and compromise. This exposure to democratic ideals had instilled in them a deeper understanding of the complexities of governance and labor relations. The departure from Camp Alton was a bittersweet moment for the POWs. They had spent years adapting to a life that was both confining and enlightening, marked by a unique intersection of cultures and ideas. As they boarded trains that would begin their journey back to Germany, they carried with them a wealth of knowledge and insights that would influence their reintegration into post-war society. Upon returning to Germany, the former POWs found themselves in a nation grappling with the challenges of reconstruction. The war had left deep scars, both physically and socially, and the need for rebuilding was urgent. Many of the POWs, armed with the experiences and lessons from Camp Alton, sought to contribute positively to this effort. They became part of a generation that would help shape the future of Germany, drawing on the democratic principles they had observed and internalized during their captivity. The legacy of the German POWs at Camp Alton extended beyond their immediate contributions to post-war Germany. Their exposure to American democratic ideals and labor relations played a role in fostering a broader understanding of the potential for change and reconciliation. As they navigated the challenges of rebuilding their homeland, the insights gained during their time in America served as a reminder of the transformative power of dialogue, empathy, and mutual respect. In the years that followed, the impact of these experiences continued to resonate, influencing the broader narrative of post-war recovery and reconciliation. The story of the German POWs at Camp Alton became a testament to the enduring potential for understanding and cooperation in the aftermath of conflict. It highlighted the importance of exposure to diverse perspectives in fostering a more peaceful and equitable world. Ultimately, the experiences of the German POWs at Camp Alton underscored the resilience of the human spirit and the capacity for growth and transformation. Through their journey from wartime prisoners to contributors to a new Germany, they exemplified the possibility of change and the enduring value of democratic ideals in shaping a better future.